Hello. We need to get started. If you would take your seats, please, and remember to turn off your cell phones. I would appreciate it. I was originally going to have the candidates draw numbers for the order to speak in, but we've decided to dispense with that because it was just getting too hard to do today. So anyway, welcome to League Candidates Night 2025. I am Margaret Copey, convener of the League of Women Voters of Lexington. With us tonight as moderator is Ellen Hardy. Ellen has moderated many candidate forums for the Lexington League. She has been a member of the Westford League since its founding in 1967, is that right? She was elected to the Westford Board of Selectmen in the 1970s and served as the first woman moderator for 25 years. Welcome, Ellen.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be back. Someone was saying it's not loud enough. Are we now being able to hear it to the back of the room? Okay. Is there anything the cable man can do to make the microphones more audible to the people who are here? Because you can't do it. I will just speak as loud as I can, and I'll ask the candidates to do the same thing. So I welcome you this evening. This is an auspicious night because it turns out that the League of Women Voters of Lexington began this tradition 80 years ago in 1945. So spectacular. As it was when it was founded, today the League of Women Voters continues to be a nonpartisan political organization. Our goal is to educate the voters so that they can make intelligent decisions. We do not support candidates, and the League does not support parties. We only take positions on issues we have studied carefully and have a position on, and that is our policy and will continue to be so. Tonight's Candidates Night is in preparation for your town election, which is on Monday, March 3rd, 2025. LexMedia is recording tonight's meeting, so if other people say, I'm sorry I missed it, please tell them to go to the cable station and find out what is being rebroadcast so they can hear everything that you are hearing tonight. There are 3 elected positions that are on the ballot and are opposed. For the people who are chatting in the back, please keep that down. Thank you. Planning Board, School Committee, and Select Board. Unopposed and not with us this evening are the moderator, Deborah Brown, who is running for re-election for a 1-year term, and also for Housing Authority for a 5-year term, Richard Perry is a candidate for re-election, but he is not with us this evening and he will not be speaking. We do, however, have the 2 candidates for Planning Board, and if Tina McBride and Tom Scheifel would be good enough to come up to the table. So, the format will be that each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. We have questions from you here. You can please write them on pieces of paper, and members of the League will gather them in and send them up to the moderator. And those questions will have 1-minute answers, and then each candidate will have an opportunity for a closing statement, which will be 1 minute. So, thank you both for being here. We've been asked by the people, especially in the nosebleed seats, if we would speak directly into the microphone and as loudly as you are able to do this. With that, I will turn the microphone over to you, Tina, if you would start, please, and introduce yourself to the voters of Lexington.
It's on. Is this on? Yep. Okay. Hello, I am Tina. Closer? Okay. It's hard to hear yourself so loud. Okay, I am Tina McBride, born and raised in Lexington. I returned to my hometown with my husband to raise our family. I have been an inclusionary housing advocate for over a decade and believe we need more missing middle, workforce, and affordable housing in healthy green neighborhoods. In 2023,
Tom and I were among the 13 town meeting members who brought a compromise amendment to Article 34. However, when the amendment failed, I voted no on Article 34, and Tom voted yes. I voted no not against housing, but to ask that the planning board develop a sensible proposal in the 1.5 years remaining until the state-imposed deadline. The approach of deregulate aggressively first and adjust later is not good planning. It will cost taxpayers millions of dollars and create housing that does not meet our stated goal in the comprehensive plan. None of the images used in the MBTA zoning presentation were by right. They all went through extensive negotiation. They were special permits or planned developments. This is really important as we look at 250 acres of by right development in Lexington. Public speaking is not my forte, but I listen to my constituents and I do good work, and I'd like to ask for your vote.
Tina McBride, who is one of 2 candidates running for 1 position for planning board. I now introduce Tom Scheipel, who will tell you why he is running for the board. Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom Scheipel. Thank you to the League for organizing this forum. As a candidate for the planning board, I believe that with care, we can have a town that balances our aspirations for the future with our need to maintain ongoing financial stability. A quick background about myself: I moved to town in 2008 and became involved in the youth soccer club, where I eventually became president, as well as leading the private project to install lights on one of the soccer fields at Lincoln Park. I was the first elected to town meeting in 2018, and in addition, I now serve on the town's bicycle advisory committee and the zoning board of appeals. I'm trained as an electrical engineer, and I worked in the computer industry. The hot button topic right now is the MBTA multifamily zoning. The projects in the pipeline will provide much needed housing for young families, seniors who want to downsize, grandparents who want to live near their kids, or divorced parents who want to stay close to their families. In addition, it will add about 160 units of affordable housing available to people whose household income is less than 80% of the average for this area. However, that's still a lot of development in a short time. Thus, I support Article 2 at special town meeting to greatly reduce further development for now. Nonetheless, I don't think Article 2 is the last word on this issue. The current bylaw has flaws which Article 2 does not address. If elected, I want to improve the MBTA bylaw to get projects that fit nicely in Lexington at a pace we can handle. Planning is an analysis-intensive activity. However, it also requires an ability to translate diverse resident priorities into policy. I intend to have an open door to listen to the hopes and concerns of residents. I believe these characteristics play to my strengths, and I intend to be a strong voice on the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you both. I remind you that if you're here in the auditorium at the school, you can write your questions on a 3x5 card. There are League members who have those available for you. I will start with the question that the League board has created that is both of you, and I'll let you take the first stab at it, Tom, since Tina was the opening comment. Housing is a critical issue in the state and in Lexington. As a member of the planning board, what are your thoughts about the housing supply in Lexington, other than what you addressed in your opening statements? And how do you plan to work on these housing issues as a member of the planning board?
So clearly the state has a severe housing shortage, and that was the purpose of the MBTA Communities Act. I think we got off to a fantastic start, better than anybody can imagine. I think these 1,100 units in the pipeline, the town will be able to absorb that, and it'll definitely provide much needed housing, a diversity of housing choices at different price points. And going forward, I don't think that we should stop all development going forward. I think we can craft a new bylaw to get fewer projects and smaller projects that will fit nicely into Lexington to continue to provide much needed housing here in Lexington. I'll stop there, thank you.
Thank you. And Tina, your thoughts on the housing supply, how you address it, and also how you'd work with the other members of the board to make these happen? Thank you.
Growing up in Lexington, I grew up in a very working class neighborhood. There were lots of blue collar families. There were a lot of very small homes. And there was also the other side of Lexington. Over time, I have seen the hollowing out of Lexington housing. More and more, since I came back into Lexington in 2000, small homes are disappearing and we're being replaced by very large homes. And in 2005, that's when I really started, well, 2014, that was really when I started really taking notice and feeling like I wanted to take action. The problem with the MBTA communities is that it really does not address the biggest issue, and that's a lot of the missing middle. This was not designed to be for affordable housing. It was designed for more housing.
Thank you. Do the runners have questions that they can bring up to the podium so that I can? Thank you so much. The sorting hat is sorting. Okay. This is addressed only to one candidate, and I have trouble with that because we're trying to do ones that both can answer. So I will, yes, I go, Tom, the first step at it, and then if Tina has a footnote to it, then you can do that. Tom, this question wants to know what your role was in the analysis of the 250-acre proposal. I'm reading what a voter has written. Is there, and I don't have the history, so if you don't think there's an answer to that, please let me know.
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to address that.
Thanks.
So in 2021, I teamed up with 2 other town meeting members to basically study zoning proposals coming before town meeting, to break them down into small chunks. We wrote small explainers that we published to other town meeting members to help them understand the issues that were coming before them. We continued that work into 2023 with respect to the MBTA zoning. We were trying, a lot of people were asking how many units of housing are we going to get from this? And I felt like I had, a framework to base a prediction on. And so we put together an estimate that turned out to be woefully low based on what we've seen in the last year and a half. I went back and studied what were the assumptions that we made that we got wrong. And just 2 weeks ago or so, we published a reassessment of our analysis to show exactly what were the assumptions that we got wrong. This was all done in good faith, and I'm happy to admit that we got things wrong. I'm not happy to, but I'm willing to do that. But I think it was also important to explain to people exactly the factors that led to that misprediction.
Tina, do you have any input, just since it's on the table, the question of the analysis of the 250 acres, and any thoughts about that, just because you have equal time?
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a lot of feelings about that.
Only 30 seconds, 1 minute's worth, please.
When I have been hearing over the past few weeks, I will make sure I say this loud and clearly, that there was no way that we could know that this development was going to happen as quickly as it did. There were a number of us that, other than jumping up and down and screaming, there was no way that we could get that point across. We knew, I have a very good idea, a very good understanding of Lexington and what's been happening in Lexington over the past 60 years. And when I hear that there's no way that we could have known, it makes me feel invisible. because there was a lot of talk. We tried very hard to make people hear that we understood that 400 to
Wind that
800.
down here. Just, I know, I mean, it's not very much, but just conclude that thought if you'd be so kind.
Bad metrics get bad results. Thank you.
Thank you. This question would go to you first, Tina. There are two questions. They both have to do with Article 2, so I'm going to combine them into one thought. One is, I want to know how Article 2 could be improved if you were given the opportunity to make such improvements, especially where it appears that we may not be compliant with the MBTA guidelines.
I heard that last night at the planning board meeting, and I know that a number of lawyers have looked at this and have no doubt that we will be in compliance. There are many, many moving parts. That is a given, but I don't think that we, after hearing the argument again and again, just because it keeps being restated does not mean it is not, that does not mean that it is true. There are a number of things that I care deeply about with reworking Article 34, setbacks that allow space for trees, gardens, small green spaces, really important for me. The heights, reducing the heights, making it more human scale for all the neighbors that are living in the area, those are things that are really, really important to me, and I want very much the opportunity to work on them.
Tom, on Article 2, what revisions do you think you could make if given the opportunity and this issue of compliance with the state guidelines?
Specifically with respect to Article 2, I'm definitely looking beyond Article 2, whether this passes or not, because I think it's important for the planning board to go back and clean things up. But nonetheless, if Article 2 passes, there will be a period of, I don't know, 12 to 24 months before the planning board comes back with a proposal that will be living with those rules. And there's two things I think could be improved. One is this issue of compliance. People who are in the know just need to sit down and work this out. I think it's going to be a waste of time for us at town meeting if we're arguing over whether or not this thing is compliant. If there are adjustments that need to be made to make it compliant, let's do that, and let's get on to the central issue. The second thing is the 15 units per acre. Without constraining the size of the buildings, what can very likely happen is that we just get the same size buildings, but with much bigger units, which is not going to help at all with affordability. We're going to have 2,000 square foot condos that are going to be selling for, the price of a single family home right now in Lexington. So those are the two issues that I would address, but beyond the special town meeting, I want to dig into some of the issues that Ms. McBride mentioned as well, and I have a lot of other things. Thank you.
Thank you. Last question, then we'll get into closing statements unless I see other questions from the voters here. Tom, we'll start with you on this one. What message did you hear at yesterday's planning board meeting, and how would you accommodate these very diverse views?
I think kind of touched on in my previous response. Compliance is a big one. Two sides are in a disagreement on that. That needs to be worked out. Number two, I think there's some serious issues again with the 15 units per acre and the repercussions of that. Also how it plays into inclusionary housing and keeping our 15% affordability requirement there. So overall though, I think there is a broad consensus in town to slow things down, tap the brakes, and get a handle on the zoning and to come back with a better article, with a better zoning measure. Thank you.
Tina, what was your takeaway from yesterday's planning board meeting, and how do you think these diverse views can be accommodated, please?
I think that there are a lot of ways that we can address what was going on last night. I think that I don't feel that there is a recognition on the part of the planning board, and I hope that if I'm able to get the seat on the planning board, I will start to work with the people that have made some of these decisions, and hopefully be able to come to some kind of understanding as to how we make it better. Right now, there's a lot of vitriol, and there has to be a way to work on some of the biggest concerns, like mine that I stated, the height and the green space or lack of green space. Also, the density. We don't want lower density because it will cost more, and what we're really looking for is more workforce housing and missing middle. We do want the firemen and the nurses and the doctors and the police to come back to be able to live in Lexington, like when I was a kid. Thank you.
Thank you. Since Tina had the first word, Tom, you'll give your closing statement, if you would, please, to the voters, and then Tina will end the planning board discussion. Thank you.
Thanks. So the issue of the amendment working group in 2023 was brought up. Ms. McBride and I worked on together. We obviously both voted for the amendment and narrowly lost. I just want folks to understand with respect to this idea that, that people who voted for Article 34 in the end, were deregulating first and then adjusting later. If that amendment had passed, which was 134 acres, which we had good intent. The intent was to start slow. The particular 134 acres that we chose would have resulted in 70% of the housing units, of the 1,100 housing units being built anyway. We've all heard this scary number of 12,000 possible units. The 134 acres we chose would have only reduced that to 9,000. So if the amendment had passed, I think we'd be sitting up here answering the same questions about Article 2 and how we slow this down. So the idea that just because somebody didn't vote for Article 34, but they supported the amendment, means that they foresaw all of this, I just don't think it really stacks up with what we've seen happen since then. Thank you.
And Tina, your last word, please.
I think that, yes, we would have seen development. There was no doubt that with 34 or the amendment passing, we would see more development. However, it was in the details. Would they be smaller buildings? Would there be more green space? Would there be smaller units? These are all things that we're going to have to work on, and I think that 2020 hindsight is something we all wish we had in the very beginning, and unfortunately we don't. I've been attending these planning board meetings for over a decade, and I have a very strong sense of how things are functioning or not functioning in this particular planning board. I have an understanding of how the Lexington demand has influenced what has happened, which is one of the reasons I was pushing so hard to reduce the number of acres. I really would like the opportunity to get on the planning board to make some changes. Please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, both of you, for taking out papers and running. Let me remind the voters that there are 2 people running for one seat. Both would be newcomers to the board. Neither is running for re-election. If the people who are running now, please, for the school committee. Okay, let me make it clear how we have 4 candidates at the table, rearranging themselves. 3 of them are running for 2 seats for 3-year terms, and 2 of them are incumbents. The last candidate who was on the stage, I believe that's Sarah Carter, do I have that right? Yes. Is running unopposed for a one-year term as a result of a two-year term, thank you very much, as a result of a resignation of a city member of the Lexington School Committee. But we're just going to, you have to sort that out yourselves, because we're just going to do all of the questions and go down and have everyone have the opportunity to address them. We're not going to deal with them as two separate races. With that, I will start on my left. Would you be kind enough, Larry, to introduce yourself to the voters and tell them why you want to be on the school committee? Your microphone is right there. And thank you for passing it back and forth.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Larry Freeman. I am running for re-election to the Lexington School Committee. I am running because part of me, the marginalized identities that I have, tells me that education is one of the greatest equalizers in our society. Education is a level playing field that no one can ever take away from you, no matter what you decide to do in life. I feel like we here in Lexington, we have a great educational system. I want to continue that. I want our students to flourish, no matter what opportunities they envision for themselves after college, after high school, after college, whatever field they want to go into. I feel like it is our district's responsibility to make those dreams possible by providing them the quality education they deserve. Thank you.
And then we'll just move down the table to Eileen J., please. Thank you.
Thank you, League of Women Voters. My name is Eileen J., and I'm running for re-election to the school committee. As the current chair with 9 years of experience, I bring the skills and proven leadership we need to navigate the complex issues ahead of us. Experience matters as we face serious challenges around budgets, buildings, enrollment concerns, and MBTA rezoning. I've been managing tough issues for many years, and I have a solid grasp of school and municipal finance, operations, and facilities. This knowledge base takes years to develop, but is critical for navigating such complex issues. New members need time to come up to speed, but with so much at stake, we need seasoned, capable leaders. I'm committed to working hard to find solutions that balance the educational needs of students with the concerns of our residential taxpayers. Caring for students is at the heart of what I do. I'm always listening to students and taking their concerns to heart in every decision I make. I love the work I do on the school committee for our students. I have a doctorate in education from Harvard, where I worked as an educational researcher, so my passion is in teaching and learning. On the school committee, I championed support for mental health. I advocated for a diversity curriculum that's now being implemented. I helped craft our LPS core values, such as we all belong and care for yourself and others. In my next term, I'll focus on these priorities: to maintain the excellence of our schools while managing budgets, collaborate with the community to address school enrollment, ensure all students learn foundational skills in literacy, math, and other core abilities, to support students' emotional needs so they feel safe and know they belong, and to provide equitable, inclusive education that serves our most vulnerable students. I love to listen, and I welcome hearing from you. Please contact me at my website, jforschoolcommittee.com, and I ask for your vote on Monday, March 3rd.
Thank you. The third candidate running for the three-year term, for the two will be elected for the three-year term, Lana Panasuk, if you would be introduce yourself to the voters. Thank you.
Hi, I'm running for school committee because Lexington education system is falling behind. Right now, 1 in 3 elementary students is reading below grade level. Without homework, kids aren't developing strong work ethic. In middle school, the highest grade you can get is meeting expectations. There is no more exceeding expectations. We've lost the ability level classes in math and language.
Lana, can you put the microphone right up next to your mic so just the voice goes further? Thank you, ma'am.
Straight.
Yep.
Straight.
Perfect.
At the high school, overcrowding is so severe that electives are being replaced with non-instructional study halls, sometimes 1 or 2 hours a day. As a parent of 3 kids in middle and high school, I see this firsthand every night, especially compared to 2 of my older sons who've already graduated from LHS. For 26 years, I've been deeply involved in my kids' education in Lexington. I've led robotics teams, science and math clubs, big backyard walks, and coached hockey and soccer. I have a PhD in geophysics from MIT, and I have an MBA in entrepreneurship. I'm committed to using my experience to help to fix our schools. If elected, I'm going to focus on accountability from the school committee to the public and from the superintendent to the committee. I will work with fellow committee members to bring back academic excellence and sound financial planning. I will listen to the community to ensure the curriculum meets and exceeds parents' expectations, and resources are used to serve our children best. Please vote for me.
Thank you. And the last speaker will be Sarah Carter, who is running unopposed for a 2-year term on the school committee. Sarah?
Hello, my name is Sarah Carter, and I'm running for the 2-year school committee position. I am running because I believe Lexington has incredible potential to continue its tradition of educational excellence. As a forward-thinking community, we must ensure that our children are equipped with the skills and knowledge they need to thrive in the future. I have a background as a middle school social studies teacher, as well as an elementary school librarian. I have dedicated much of my life to supporting students, families, and teachers in public education. In the variety of roles I have as a teacher, parent, and volunteer, I have learned how our schools operate day to day and gained valuable insights into both staff and family perspective. If elected, I'll be ready on day 1 because I understand how our system works and how to be an effective champion for students. I am a parent of 3 children who are currently part of Lexington Public Schools. Volunteering and working in the schools have shaped my views on the roles of education in the lives of our children. Putting all children first will be the guiding principle for any work that I do. My priorities as school committee member will be enabling teachers and departments across LPS to explore new curriculum ideas to meet the needs of our diverse student body. Ensure that data-driven evaluation processes are in place with clear, meaningful goals and measurable outcomes to support growth and change for all students. Advocate for the new high school design put forth by the school building committee that addresses our inadequate space, facilities, and security issues. Understand and address the space issues that disproportionately impact our special education students. And finally, make myself available and accessible to listen to our community's concerns and student needs. A large part of making informed decisions is understanding the realities on the ground by hearing firsthand from students and parents.
Thank you very much. I'm going to come back down the table this way. Lana, if you would be good enough to answer this question. I think Sarah just addressed it about her position on the new high school, which she said she supported. But a voter wants to know each of your positions on the proposal for the new Lexington High School. Lana, you're the first speaker, please, and then pass the microphone to your right. Thank you.
The school committee has faced overcrowding at LHS for the 9 years. And the Bloom proposal has deepened community divisions. It fails to address overcrowding and cost, while raising concerns about environmental impact and preserving our heritage. LHS is over capacity by 600 students right now, and it will get worse as more students move into rezoned multifamily units. Similarly, Bloom as planned will be over capacity on the day 1 when it opens in 5 years. Instead, as an example, adding one academic building to the current campus will solve overcrowding in 2 years and manage the student students influx. Bloom's high costs only qualify for 15% of state subsidy due to non-academic spaces, while adding one academic building on the current campus would qualify for the full 30% subsidy. Bloom will have a long-term impact on our town, demolishing the current campus, fields and wetlands, and erasing generations of history. We need to prioritize academics, teachers, and community while preserving the environment and history.
Eileen, your position on the new high school, please.
Yes, thank you. We know we need a new high school due to the overcrowding and the age of the building. I'm afraid that as an abutter to the high school property, I'm not allowed to answer any specific questions about the building project itself. To abide by state law, I've recused myself from school committee and financial discussions on the project. However, I will talk about the MSBA process required to receive the state reimbursement. It is the school building committee that is the decision-making body for the project, not the school committee. The SBC is a multi-stakeholder group that works with the designer to arrive at a preferred plan. So the school committee itself does not play a large role in the specific design or construction. Our work involves so much more than this project, so I believe that I can be a very effective school committee member on the wide range of issues that we do work on. Secondly, the MSBA process will allow for accepting for their approval one and only one proposal that is submitted by the town. There are no alternate design proposals being considered by the MSBA other than the one already officially submitted by Lexington.
And Larry Freeman, please, your opinions about the new high school.
Thank you. I fully support the Bloom proposal that is before the town. I just want to say that while Lexington High School and the education that we give our students here at Lexington, I'm not saying it's perfect. But when I hear comments that we are failing students, we are not doing what we should be doing, to me, what I hear is demeaning the value of the education of our students that we provide. We're demeaning the value of our teachers and faculty that really dedicate themselves to our schools. We have always turned out great students. Our students go on to do great things in life. And I just don't like hearing when people say our district is failing. We are not failing. We're doing great. Are we perfect? No. Can we do better? Yes. And I do support Bloom 100%. However, I am running to be on school committee and not on the school building committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Eileen, this question will go to you first. I was just going to say, okay, you said you support the high school, but please amplify on that. You're absolutely right, Sarah. My apologies. Yep.
So I graduated from Lexington High School in 1994. And a couple of years ago, I got to go back to the high school for a curriculum night for my oldest student. And I was standing in the top floor hallway of the main building, and it has not changed. It is exactly the same from 30 years ago. And if there's anybody who went to high school there in the 60s or 70s, it's exactly the same. The building has reached the end of its life. It does not meet the educational needs of our students anymore. We need a new high school. Any plan that we consider has to address the failing infrastructure, the space issues, and security. Bloom does that, and it has the lowest cost, the least amount of time, and the least disruption to the students. The plan that Lana is supporting will cost over $1 billion, that's with a B, and will take 12 to 15 years to complete. We will be in a state of perpetual construction that no one who is currently in the schools will see the result of.
Thank you, and I apologize for the oversight. Eileen, we'll start with you on this one, work down to Larry, and then go back down to Sarah. What commitments can you make to exploring the needs of families, especially those with children with special needs? commitments you can make to explore the needs of families, including children with special needs. So many families there.
Okay. Yes, I'll start by saying that it's our responsibility to educate every student in our system who resides in Lexington. And that includes all students, no matter what their needs, what their level of ability is. We are here to serve them and give them the best possible education. I know that there has been a lot of interest in particular around special education students, and particularly around our in-house programs. The commitment I can make is that we as a district are going to do a very thorough program review of those programs as well as our out-of-district placements for students, because we need to first make sure that they are getting the proper services and that we are delivering them in a way, whether it's an in-house program or out-of-district, in a way that's meeting their educational needs primarily, but then also seeing what the most cost-effective way of doing that is.
Thank you. I think you can send it to your left, and then we'll end with Larry on this one.
I'm next.
Please. This has to do with commitments to children to every child, especially families with children with special needs.
Talking from my experience, the special needs kids, it's God-given. They are part of your family, and you have to love them and care for them as much as you care for all your children. You have to adjust your life to take care of those children, and you have to provide as much as you can so that they grow happy and part of the society. So what is important for these children in the school? The teachers. The teachers are those Unit C teachers. Right now, they are fighting for their contract to be renewed for the last 8 months. You know what their salary is? Their salary is like a custodian. It's $30 an hour. And they are dealing with our most vulnerable population. So my proposal is that the school committee, first of all, acknowledge the value of those teachers and don't delay their contract for them. These teachers, they pour their hearts into our children.
Thank you. I think the stop sign has come up, so if you pass it to Sarah. Thank you so much. Do you want me to reread the question, or are you all set? Yep.
Okay, sorry, just making sure.
Yes.
So all 3 of my children have had IEPs at different points during their careers at in LPS. And I've been an active member of the Special Education Parents Advisory Board for at least the last 5 years. But honestly, I look out this audience right now and I see people who I've had long conversations with about their children and about the struggles their children and they have had working and trying to get their children to get the appropriate education that they deserve. And I will be an advocate for them. And I will work to make sure that we are doing what we need to get these children educated in an appropriate and effective way. Because I've been there and I understand.
Thank you. Here.
I guess as many of you know, I am a special education parent, so special education, I hold it very dear to my heart. As Eileen mentioned, we are doing a program review of special education. I'm hoping we're going to come out with some good results there, indicating where we can improve, and maybe we can reallocate some of that money to early intervention, identifying special education needs much earlier than what we're doing now. One thing I want to commit to is I feel like our engagement with the community, we've sort of dropped the ball there between the school district and the community. I think we need to go back to having those surveys from parents and families with special education children so that we can get the feedback and hear what the community is saying. I feel like we've moved away from that. I think we definitely need to revisit that. And it's just like any good business. You need feedback from your customers in order to see the level of service you're providing, if it is indeed appropriate.
And then, Laura, if you would start with this question, please. It has to do with budget. We have I believe this figure is $2 million budget deficit. I can't quite read it. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. What new guidelines do you see should be implemented to deal with this budget deficit in the Lexington schools? Laura, we'll start with you, go to Sarah, and then work our way back.
What guidelines? First, let's see what caused that, and then we'll try to figure it out if we can solve the issue. In my understanding, the reason for budget deficit is insufficient buffer, which didn't include the number of kids who go through who need special attention after the pandemic. That buffer didn't include the support for academic and emotional curriculum for those kids. The second one is my understanding, the second reason for the freeze is the slow response rate for slow adjustment IT infrastructure. We put a lot of money and effort into introducing IT into the schools. Now is the time to find this golden middle where it doesn't have to be all IT, but we can come back on partial face-to-face interaction between teachers and the students. So if elected, I would like to look at the budget and find the holes where the money exists, like for example, make flexible redistricting between different schools so we don't have schools where there are empty spots and schools which are overcrowded.
Thank you. I think we could give it the left to Sarah, and then we'll get it back down to this end.
In many ways, the reason we have the budget is that we have unanticipated needs in areas. One of the big areas was large numbers of students that we did not budget for coming in that were receiving significant special ed services. There are two things that I think we could look at with the budget in relation to these. First of all is making sure that we are not leaving any money on the table when we look at state funding that reimburses some of these costs, especially circuit breakers. I know that we put in a lot of effort to make sure we get it. I want to make sure there's not any that we're missing because we need the money right now. Secondly, I would like to echo the idea of really looking and reevaluating how we are doing our magnet special ed programs. They're right now at capacity at the schools where they're at, and so any parent who moves into district and wants to have their child go there, those children are then placed out of district, and we would save money if we could find a way to keep them in district by opening up mirror programs or alternate programs at other schools where there is space.
Thank you very much, Sarah. If you give that to Larry, please, and then we'll get Eileen the last word on this question.
Well, just starting off, I work in finance. So I fully recognize that budgets are just projections. But then when you start figuring your actuals, you realize that things happen that you had no way of anticipating. We had no way of anticipating how many displaced students with housing insecurities that would end up in our district. There's no way we could have predicted that. There's no way we could have budgeted that. But we still had the obligation to educate those students. But those students, it comes with huge transportation costs. And I think people forget that when you start talking about blurring lines as far as which schools students go to, think about transportation, which is extremely high. I mean, it's just not like riding the city bus. Transporting students, you have to be qualified. It is extremely expensive, and there's no way around those kind of costs. Thank you.
Thank you, yes. To close an anticipated shortfall of $2 million in FY 2025, LPS instituted a budget freeze, which is a deliberate attempt to prudently slow down spending. The actual reasons for increased expenses include costs for post-pandemic goods, the loss of the state support, including the transportation for temporarily housed students, and increases in move-ins of students with high needs. In FY25, there were 25 FTE positions that were added to meet the needs of those high-need students. LPS is implementing this freeze measures such as consolidating administrative positions, monitoring new hiring, adjusting class sizes to optimize classrooms, and reducing non-essential expenses. In anticipation of a potential deficit of $3.5 million for FY26, the school committee managed to actually approve a balanced budget. To offset that shortfall, we anticipate consolidating elementary and middle school classrooms, reducing expense lines, reducing the high-risk list, which serves as a cushion for uncertainty in special education costs. It's always difficult to cut back on expenses, but the reductions were intentionally chosen to avoid direct impact on students or their learning.
Thank you. We have run out of. Could we share?
That's it.
Yes, I shouldn't hit it. We do have one other question, but I don't want to run into selectmen's time, and I don't want people to get bleary-eyed. So the person who had the question, please feel free to come up to the candidates after they finish and ask your question. It has something to do with a contract negotiation, but we don't have time to address that tonight. So I will ask you to, well, just for clear, because we are down to one microphone, I should be closing with you, Sarah, and coming this way, but may I start with Larry and just one down the table? So you each have 1 minute for your closing statement to tell the voters of Lexington why you would like their vote on the 3rd of March. Larry?
Thank you. I am asking for your vote on March 3rd to be reelected to the Lexington School Committee. I may not be the best speaker sitting at this table, but one thing I know for sure, I love the students of Lexington. I love the town of Lexington. I really embody the thought of we all belong. And I mean from the brightest student in our district to the student who struggles the most. We have that same obligation to every single student, and I am committed to try to provide that service to every child in our district. So I ask that you vote for Larry Freeman on March 3rd.
Thank you. In thinking about the responsibility of an elected official, I believe that we must entrust the people we elect to use good judgment. We can't predict the specific issues or complexities they'll face. Therefore, it's their good judgment that we rely upon when we elect them. As a school committee member, I feel it's my duty to represent everyone and use my best judgment to do what's best for all students. When members bring a specific agenda or seek to represent a particular group, it can skew their perspective on what's best for all. I've tried to exercise good judgment by listening to multiple perspectives and considering all factors. I've listened to students who want to see themselves represented in the curriculum or who've experienced anxiety or felt unseen. I highly value the perspective of our educators, who are the ones who know how to teach students, and I always welcome input from parents and community members. I take the responsibility of being on the school committee very seriously. Caring for students is at the heart of what I do, and I would be honored to continue serving our children, and I ask for your vote on Monday, March 3rd.
So in the closing, I'd like to propose you to think about not voting for one person, but voting for the committee. We are the 5 people, will be the 5 people who are going to determine the fate of the Lexington Public Schools. So think about the composition. We're not voting for president here. We are voting for the committee, for 5 people. Now think in terms of who can represent, who has kids in the system, who would know the system from inside out every night through their kids, through their eyes of their children. Think about if the person knows what the academic excellence is. Does it have common sense? Does it have experience knowing what the academic excellence is and showing that? Does the person has an analytical mind in order to look at the numbers, look what's going on, sit back and ask the questions? What you want to have in a committee is somebody who is not afraid of raising the question and be an outsider. Even though everyone says one thing, there should be one who says, wait a second, let's see what's going on. Because committee is a majority. We will decide all together. There could be a minority, and that's fine. But you want to have discussion and raise the questions within 5 people. Thank you.
Before I came here tonight, I was at Lexington High School. Anybody who drove past it probably went, why are there so many cars there? It was curriculum night for the rising 9th grade families. And I'm sitting in the auditorium with all these other families that I've known for at least 9 years, thinking about, as my 8th grader moves on to the high school, what he's going to need, what he's going to do. I am a parent who thinks about my children, but I also think about your children. And I think about what they need as they move through the system and what I can do to support you and your children to be successful.
Thank you all for running so very, very much. People who are running for select board, please join us to come forward.
Check 1, 2.
We're down to the last of the 3 committees on which there are candidates running for election who have competition. We're now to the select board. You will be electing 2 of these 4 people to the select board. We changed the name of Westford to the select board about 4 years ago, and I still can't do it. But I'm working at it very hard after 53 years of having to select the board of selectmen. And I was one, so I should really get over it. Joe Pato is the incumbent candidate for re-election at the far end. Vinita Kumar is candidate for re-election on my immediate left. Thank you. Candidate for election. I was seeing if you were still with me. Dawn McKenna on Vanita's left is a candidate for election. And Patrick Mayer is also running for the seat, but does not currently hold it. We will use the same rules we did before. Each one will have a 2-minute opening statement. I then have some questions from you, and then we will have closing statements and send you on your way to dream of nothing but elections. Would you please, and that microphone, I hope will be working, so please give us your opinion. Yes, please.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thank you, League of Women Voters, for organizing this forum and for the wonderful work that you do in civic engagement. Hello, fellow candidates, and thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm Vinita Kumar, and I'm running for Select Board because I care deeply about our town and truly believe that our best days are ahead of us. We moved to Lexington 15 years ago, and my son, who is a senior in college now, is a proud product of the Lexington public school system. Starting with PTO activities, I've taken progressively responsible roles in the community. More recently, as a town meeting member for 3 terms, I've advocated for key issues in town like equity and transparency. As a TMMA chair during the pandemic, I stepped up as a leader to actively engage with and help the community come together. I also worked closely with our town moderator and town office to ensure a smooth transition to the remote meeting format for town meeting. As the president of Getting Involved Group, I champion civic engagement in the Indian American community. As the LHS PTO during the pandemic, which was a very challenging time for all of us, I worked to support the redefined needs of our school, teachers, parents, and students. We are at an inflection point in Lexington, a growing multicultural town with aging infrastructure, lack of economic diversity, and affordability. The young and the old are finding it difficult to sustain themselves in Lexington, and our teachers and staff are living in other towns. We are losing the opportunity for mutual enrichment with teachers and staff living in the same town. These are the kind of issues I've worked on for the last 3 decades. As a management consultant, I've helped Fortune 500 companies analyze complex issues, optimize resources, and drive sustainable growth. I know how to balance data with real-life needs and bring diverse groups together to constructive collaboration and shared wins. My skills in finance, operations, and management are relevant in addressing our challenges, including the immediate need to rein in the MBTA zoning bylaw and advance the high school project cost effectively. I will bring a fresh perspective to help us build on our excellence, and I hope to earn one of your votes on March 3rd.
Thank you. Dawn McKenna, would you please introduce yourself to the voters?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you to the League for hosting this. I've been to many of these, and I really appreciate the work that you do. Thank you to my candidates for participating in this process, and thank you especially to my husband, who is here tonight, doesn't usually come to these things. He and I, for those who don't know, met in 2nd grade, went all through the public schools here. We actually met at the Franklin School, the old Franklin School, which is just up the hill. We always said we'd get married, have 2 children, and live on the Battle Green, and we do. And then ultimately, I really want to thank everybody who is in this audience, who's here to learn and to listen and hopefully learn who you want to support. As long as I can remember, I've had a passion for serving the needs of Lexington residents. I have a history of getting things done, and I am particularly interested in making sure that we are engaging with the community. And to that end, today I received the endorsement of the Lexington firefighters, who talked about my engagement and how that helps the town. I got into this race because we have serious challenges. It needs strong leadership to meet this moment. I have been out knocking doors. Some of you have seen me in your neighborhoods, and as of today, I have now knocked on over 600 doors. And the reason I do that is to hear what you want, what you care about, because I really believe that I'm a representative of you when I serve on the board. What I've heard from them is consistent. The issues that are out there are the consequences of having passed Article 34, the cost and the direction of the Lexington High School project, keeping the town affordable for all, which is getting harder and harder to do, and that our government leaders are not listening to the public. I believe that our policies should reflect the residents' shared common values, and that has always been my guiding principle, and I will bring that back to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. And on the left, Patrick, if you would let us know who you are and why you'd like to be on the select board, please.
Thank you all for being here. I'd like to start by saying that I'm very sensitive to what Larry Freeman has been talking about, which is the need for diversity in this town and in our town government. And I'm running because I believe I bring a form of diversity that we badly need today. And to be blunt, as I always am, I like to describe myself as an autistic nerd, okay? What that means is that I'm on the autism spectrum, which means that when I don't understand something, I want to figure it out. And I am a nerd in the sense that I did attend the French equivalent of MIT and then worked at the Boston Consulting Group. And the reason I'm running is extremely simple. Our town government today does no long-range planning of our finances, of our budgets, down 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And that's a perfect recipe to destroy two important things to me. First of all, our schools, because they're 80% of our budgets. And second, the character of this town. And we have two obvious examples of this lack of planning. Article 34 goes without saying. It's to me unbelievable that we would zone for 10 times what the state in its great wisdom asked us to do. It's, in one word, irresponsible. And we are in the midst of an equally irresponsible process, which is to build a school called Bloom, which is smaller enrollment-wise than the number of students we have today. Yet it is supposed to last us for 70 years. This makes no sense at all. I understand that the 2,395 number is driven by the MSBA. The problem is that the MSBA doesn't understand the situation Lexington is in, and we should not be driven by what incompetent, in this case bureaucrats, have decided that the procedures should be. We should go back to them and explain that their procedures simply don't make sense for Lexington. And that is why I'm running. We cannot continue on this path because we will destroy our schools.
Thank you. And the last candidate is Joe Pato, who is running for re-election to the Select Board. Joe, reintroduce yourself to the town of Lexington, please.
Thank you. Thank you to the League for hosting and to you for attending, taking the time tonight or watching the recording of me and the other candidates. I'm Joe Pato and I'm running for re-election because I'm passionate about civic engagement. Since first being elected in 2013, I've served as board chair for 3 terms, during which I stressed collaboration and finding constructive solutions to complex issues. I strongly believe in inclusivity and the power of community. It's important that everyone feels heard, valued, and empowered to participate in our future. That's why I've worked hard to be transparent and engage with residents through weekly meetings and accessible communication. When key issues arise, I've hosted public forums to create opportunities for dialogue. I don't do drama, I do my homework. I apply deep analytic skills developed in my professional life as a research computer scientist at HP Labs and MIT. My initiatives are based on data and informed by our shared community values. Throughout my tenure, I focused on key priorities: advancing sustainability and climate action, ensuring sound fiscal policy with long-term planning, and maintaining strong public safety and high-quality public services. I'm passionate about how we lead locally to drive meaningful change globally. My skills and track record are vital for addressing the challenges facing us. My priorities are to support a high school project that's fair to both our students and taxpayers, to right-size MBTA zoning to better manage growth, to sustain a bright future through prudent fiscal policies and thoughtful data-driven strategic planning, and to continue to enact sound climate and environmental initiatives. It's been an honor to serve you, and I hope to earn one of your votes to continue this important work together. I'm Joe Pato, and my website is joepato.org.
Thank you, Joe. If you would pass that back down to Dawn, I'll give you the first stab at the first question that we have from the voters. We live in a divisive climate, this voter believes. Dawn, can you share specific examples of work that you have done that has led to creative and collaborative solutions to a complex issue?
I'll start by talking about the MBTA zoning. And in 2023, when that was brought forward, I knew at that point that the consequences of passing that legislation were going to be exactly what we're seeing. And I pulled together a group of people from a diverse set of opinions on that. And we worked diligently to create an amendment, which is known as the McKenna Amendment, so that we could in fact make change before it was already passed. At that point, unfortunately, it failed by 6 votes. And included in those 6 votes was Mr. Pato, who was one of the leaders of supporting the legislation and did not do anything to help us pull it back at this point. And so now I am working very much with the person, Carol Sarsadote, who we owe a debt of gratitude to, bringing to the town the opportunity to vote on it again. Thank you.
Patrick, an example of an issue that you have worked on to bring a collaborative solution to a complex issue.
Well, the example is MBTA zoning. Those of you who remember me in town meeting know that I coined the term that Lexington is becoming more and more of a ghetto for millionaires. And being myself Jewish, I know what a ghetto means. And so when I started digging in the numbers to understand why it is that so much housing is just unsustainable financially, I discovered a paradox, which is that if we push for too much housing under the pretext that we want more affordable housing, our deficits, our budget deficits, are going to grow so huge that we will have to raise taxes by 15, 20, 30%, which would make this town even more unaffordable. So the paradox is here, which is one of the examples of what happens when one does not do the long-range planning and analysis that I'm so keen on. One thinks that a lot of housing, because of the 15%, will create affordability, but in fact, it creates the exact opposite because of the budget rules under which we live, which would force us to raise taxes or kill the schools by, raising the 25 kids per classroom to 30, 35, whatever number, so that we could finally balance the budgets. So, in short, to answer your question, the point is one looks at numbers to understand what's really going on, and then one creates consensus around those facts.
Joe, can you give us an example? Could you pass? I'm sorry, Patrick. Could you pass this? An example of an issue that you have been part of the collaborative solution.
Thank you. I'll give you 2. The first one was around the Center Streetscape project when we were having a lot of controversy around what kind of sidewalks to put in place. We were against a wall with regard to coming to a joint decision. So I put together a plan for bringing an ad hoc committee to look at that design and bring all of the constituents together to address how we meet the needs of our Commission on Disabilities, as well as those who are concerned about the aesthetics. Knowing that I had some opposition on my own board for other issues I've taken, I brought that proposal to another member of the board so that it would be brought forward and we could gain unanimous consent to move forward. Another example is around the police station, where we were bringing it forward during the beginning of the pandemic at a time when there was a lot of national angst about policing. So I proposed that the board take a pause and go out to the community to meet with large numbers of groups. And I led that effort with Doug Vicente, and we got consensus and made changes so that it is a valuable community asset.
Thank you. I'll just loan you.
Same
question, please.
Sounds good. Thank you. I actually have 2 as well, but I will give you only 1.
Thank you.
Actually, both these situations in town happened during the pandemic, where I was holding 2 positions, one as the LHSPTO president and also the TMMA chair. So as the LHSPTO president, we faced a situation where the 2020 class from high school was graduating. And obviously the children and the parents wanted to have as normal a graduation experience as possible. And the community was really conflicted in terms of how we should celebrate that and how we should go about giving them the best experience possible. It required several conversations with different groups of people, different parents, many different ideas to whittle them down to what everybody felt like was reasonable. And at the end of it, I think the feedback we got was that it's the best we could have done, and there was a lot of appreciation for how we eventually celebrated 2020 graduation.
Patrick, you will be the first person to take on this question. To elaborate a little bit and also your solutions, what is your position on the new high school, please?
I think the new house school, known as Bloom, is an unmitigated disaster. It will cost us dearly if it's ever built for many reasons. The main one to me is that it is simply too small. It's designed for 2,395 students. We now have 2,405 right now. And this facility is supposed to last us for 70 years. That simply doesn't make any sense whatsoever, especially since we don't have a single kid now coming out of these MBTA developments. Nobody can guess how many we'll have. I can't, the governor can, the MSBA can, the school committee can, the SBC can't. It's simply impossible. Nobody has a crystal ball, and that's why we need a phased approach, like Lana described, which, by no means, as Sarah Carter pulled the number out of the air, would cost $1 billion over the last 15 years. I mean, I wish we had the answers possible here, so that somebody could ask Sarah where she pulled these numbers out of the air. Just like the Capital Expenditures Committee pulled the number out of the air that was, I quote, doodled about stage 1 of a stage project. For reasons I still wish I could understand, the SBC, which claims that it listens to the public, has stubbornly refused to look at what's in this school's own 2015 master plan.
And can you wrap that up, please? There's a stop sign right in front of you. Thank you very much. To your left, please. Joe, would you please tell us what your position is on the high school?
Thank you. I support the Bloom design. This is the design that developed over a long period of time, looking at many different opportunities. First and foremost, it meets the district's educational plan, which is a primary requirement of the MSBA. It's designed for flexibility with space for growth in phases should that be needed. It's designed for improved safety with features not present in the current campus nor obtainable in campus. It responds to community feedback by reducing disruptions of playing fields and ensures that we are retaining a number of them in the current place and moving the others and creating improved locations. It responds to parent and student feedback by reducing student disruption. It provides the fastest transition with students relocating to the new facility after 3 years of construction, followed by 18 months of demolition of the old facility and the fields, creating fields. It's cheaper and quicker to build. The other ideas proposed by citizens fail to meet the minimum requirement to be funded by the MSBA, will not be suitable, and have independent phases that are not part of any MSBA project. And we will be seeing more detailed costs on those at next week's Permanent Building Committee.
Thank you. If I could pass down to Benita, please, that would be great. And then Dawn will be the last speaker on this. Thank you.
So I support the Bloom plan, and I think Joe has actually really covered all the points that I would have made as well. It meets our education plan. It has gone through the rigor that we have in our town for good large capital projects. It meets the MSBA's requirements, and it has the least disruption. It is ready now. There are so many good reasons why Bloom is the right plan for us. And more importantly, when we go to cost, and because that's been one of the reasons why other plans have been brought to the table and discussed, is that there's a concept called net present value. So if you apply that concept to our school situation, which is still somewhere in the early 20th centuries, is that it explains to us why this project would have been a fraction of the cost we are considering right now, and why if we continue to push this forward, it is going to be a lot more expensive. There is no way that a phased plan of any sort at this point is going to be less expensive than the plan we have right now.
Dawn, your views on the new high school, please.
Thank you. I look forward to voting for a new school in a single project in the timeline that has been put forward. But one of the things that has taken place over time is that while we say we've had a lot of meetings and we've engaged the public, the fact of the matter is we go to those meetings, the SBC takes their position, they then take a vote, and then they say, is there any public feedback? I know from my prior experience on the board that a debt exclusion requires more than one segment of the community to pass. It needs the whole community. I've heard said that they're planning on making the debt exclusion be passed by 50% plus one vote. That, to me, is the wrong approach. Nor should we be looking at the cheaper and quicker project. What we should be looking at is a project that meets the community's needs within, for the next 75 years, as they've been talking about. So I look forward to doing that. I think we need more engagement. I know we can do it in the current timeline proposed.
Thank you, Dawn. Could you pass that down to Joe for the opening statements? I started with Anita and worked to your right. So I will ask Joe to start with your closing minute, please, and then we'll work our way down here. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the League and to you for attending tonight. As I've met with voters during this election season, they've asked me, what do I see as the key considerations for a candidate? And my response is, the Select Board is a collaborative body. We have no kings. A good member will seek and listen to community concerns, clarify issues for reasoned debate, work collaboratively with other key stakeholders, be respectful of residents, staff, and volunteers, lead the community where it's willing to be led, and abide by our collective decisions. My track record shows I bring these attributes to the board. I go out of my way to create opportunities for community dialogue. I respect democracy. I never threaten to prevent voters from voting on an issue. Democracy is not a spectator sport. I'm Joe Pato. Thank you for your attention, and I ask for one of your 2 votes for the Select Board on March 3rd.
Patrick, your closing statement.
Thank you, Joe. You basically said what I would say too. I mean, we are a group of 5 people who make decisions. The reality is, on Monday, March 3rd, I predict that 85% of people will stay home. So what I'm saying is, as a numbers person, as an autistic numbers person, I don't know how one can know what the open close quote community really wants. One can try, certainly. One should listen. I certainly listen because I'm not smart enough to have all the new ideas. So I listen here and there and everywhere and something pops up. So what I'm saying is that I would view my role on the Select Board as providing the numbers-driven, fact-based analysis that I haven't seen happening, and which I think is extremely dangerous. Any sophisticated organization does this, and we are not doing it, which leads us to decisions like 228 acres for MBTA zoning, or Bloom, which obviously is too small, or an SBC that doesn't listen to the public, as Dawn just summarized. When I received their survey where I was asked, do you like A, B, C, or D as a design? And my answer was, none of the above, thank you, and here is why. There wasn't even a box where I could say that. I don't think that's a way to know what the public really wants. Am I out of time?
You are indeed. Thank you.
Well, as you've heard tonight, we have serious challenges facing us. This is truly a pivotal moment, and strong leadership is needed to meet that moment. I have a proven track record of getting things done and on the issues that matter to the public. It's important that you have somebody who does engage with the public. I always say that my father used to say to me, when you go downtown to do a 5-minute errand, it takes you an hour. Because I really do respect people with all different opinions in this town, and I seek to engage with them. And one of the things we didn't get to talk much about is how many people today feel that Lexington is becoming very unaffordable. And we have these major projects before us that are going to create pressure on our budget. So we have to talk about economic development and how we are able to increase our revenues, look at our budget, to reduce the budget, and really meet this moment. I personally ask you for your vote, and I hope you'll vote on Monday, as a reminder, March 3rd. Thank you.
Benita, please.
Well, thank you, the League of Women Voters, for organizing this, and to everyone for coming today, despite the nasty weather. We Lexingtonians are facing important challenges in 2025. as well as amazing opportunities that we can work on together. My business expertise in finance and operations, along with my community work, have prepared me to serve on the select board with thoughtfulness and an open mind. As a forward-thinking community, we need new ideas, adaptability, and a collaborative approach to move forward together. Public service for me is about listening to the people and moving forward. It isn't about having all the answers up front, but about working together to find the best answers, tapping into the immense talent in our town. That's what I promise to do. As a new voice, I'll bring a fresh perspective and help us tackle the challenges of this new century. I invite you to join me in this journey, and I ask for your vote on March 3rd.
Thank you. Just before we close for the evening, let me remind you of some important dates. Maybe we can get that figure down from Patrick's prediction that 85% of the voters will not go to the polls. If you're not registered to vote, you still can. That closes on Friday, February 21st, a week from tomorrow, for when this is being broadcast. Now, because of new state laws, both absentee voting and early voting are permitted. You don't need an excuse as to why you're out of town. Those ballots simply must be back at the town clerk's office by the time the polls close on Monday, the 3rd of March. And I've been asked to remind you that there's a change of polling locations for 6 of the precincts. Precincts 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 will vote at Cary Hall. 3 and 9 continue to vote at the community center, and Precinct 8 votes at the DPW Hadley building. I thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking an interest in the elections and in council.